checking in. I'm Emma. I'm the owner and founder of Zimt. And today I'll be chatting at you a little bit about kids in care and why that is at all pertinent to Zimt and what we want to do about it, because it is it's definitely an issue deserving of far more attention than it's getting. So first of all, why is this even a focus for my company? I get that it may seem a little out of left field just because there are so many issues that are more directly applicable or directly associated with food. Like, that's what we work with. But this, kids in care is something that I've been aware of for really a really long time. I guess almost a quarter century now or so. And part of, well, actually the main reason for continuing with Zimt is to hopefully support causes that really deserve more attention, and this is certainly one of them. So that's what I'm doing here, and yeah, let's get into it. So, like I said, I have been aware of kids who are lacking, that stability that most of us really, I think all of us really, really need, especially in, kind of the start of life. And it kind of boggles my mind that they aren't given the time of day. Like, most of us are aware that kids in foster care are out there, but it's just kind of an issue that's swept under the rug. And I understand it is, it is perceived as being and felt as being very complicated for most people. But really, the bottom line's the bottom line. There are, even just on this continent, there's hundreds of thousands of kids without stable homes in care who really deserve a lot better. So how do kids get to being in foster care? I'm no expert, but from what I've researched, it kind of goes something like this. So there may be some sort of domestic disturbance, or a teacher may notice something about a kid in their class that kind of sets off some red flags, and basically the state or city or province intervenes. So this can be kind of any situation that would really cause the kid harm, right? Nobody's parents are perfect, so it's not necessarily a one-off or minor issue. It can be things like if the kid is being neglected, severely neglected in some ways, or just they don't have that solid economic stability, their family can't provide that. So kids living in cars, for example, with their families. Obviously, cars aren't the best place to raise a kid, and it can range also through to different forms of abuse. So kids who are emotionally abused, physically abused, sexual abuse is a really big one, and the goal is basically to put those kids in a better, more stable, safer environment, and hopefully, provide the biological parents a bit of an opportunity to kind of get it together a little bit more would be the goal. Now that's obviously not always the case. Often it's a pretty crazy cycle of abuse that takes place. So it's generation after generation of abuse and neglect, and man, digging your way out of that, especially when you don't have sort of a sound financial position to fall back on, if you don't have job security, drug dependence, really, like, all this plays in, and you just kind of want to cut it off at the head and get the kids into a safer, more stable environment. Now, hopefully that happens, right? Foster parents are required to take courses and become certified to be foster parents. Although, some anecdotal evidence has told me that it's not quite comprehensive, or it could be more comprehensive, and there's like a pretty, I don't want to say a large margin of error in terms of who is selected to be foster parents, but abuse often, I don't want to say often because I don't have stats, but it's not unreasonable to expect it to continue when kids are put into foster care. Okay, so I don't want to say a lot, again, God, I don't have the numbers, but they, like, these kids are easy targets, right, for predators, basically. They take a course, they, criminal background check, all that stuff. But yeah, bottom line is, oftentimes, or sometimes, these kids going into foster care, they still aren't treated with the dignity and love that they deserve. And I know that, meeting someone for the first time, like, you're probably not gonna immediately have that degree of love for the person that you would for someone you have known forever, depending. But yeah, like, they don't even necessarily get anything. Like, they may have a more stable place in some respects to go to sleep at night, but I've definitely heard on more than one occasion of kids in care being treated kind of just like maids. So if, like, let's say there's biological kids in the family as well as a foster child or two, all the chores will be put on the foster kids. Sometimes they won't be allowed to eat meals with the rest of the family. Things like that basically would make anyone feel like garbage and reinforces a really horrible perception of these kids being less than, right? So if you put yourself, or try to put yourself in the shoes of one of these kids, and even that is tough because, I don't know, something pertaining to shoes and, like, how they don't really get good shoes often, that sort of thing. Anyway, if you can put yourself in the shoes of these kids, like, it's pretty, I hope would be pretty easy to kind of get why this is kind of brutal, and then it can escalate from there. I shouldn't say escalate, but it can differ, right? So, like, physical abuse definitely can continue. Sexual abuse definitely can continue. And a lot of these are, like, they're really little kids, right? So they can't necessarily express what they need to express for their safety to caseworkers. So it's like social workers who are assigned to a child in foster care, and then I think foster parents have their own separate caseworker often. I don't think they're usually the same person. That might be because of, like, a conflict of interest or something. But anyways, so things don't necessarily go super well for kids, even when they're out of their original neglectful, harmful situation. Other anecdotes I've heard are, foster families can specify, age groups, number of kids they're willing to take in at any given time, and this often results in siblings being split up. And if you think about, kids coming from a neglectful situation or an abusive situation, oftentimes it'll be, the eldest kid who takes on additional responsibilities and feels rather obligated to take care of their younger siblings. So if they're split up from them, even if, let's say, the elder sibling gets to go to a more stable home, if another home comes up that would be willing to take all the kids, then they're faced with a super difficult decision of like, okay, do I leave this safety I have to potentially go to an unsafe situation and, help take care of my siblings, right? Because they often like step in as kind of like these pseudo parents for their younger siblings. So there's that. There's also the issue of like, on that note, it is rare for a child to stay in the same foster home for the duration of their time in care. They're often bounced from home to home, especially if they're in care for a number of years. And that can often result in them needing to switch schools, which obviously is also like disruptive. And there's just no stability. So, okay, why I'm telling you all this, other than it being something that we all should know more about, and especially like it's something that really just happens like it happens everywhere. Like it happens for sure in your city or town. I'd be surprised if it didn't. But the point of this is basically going back to kind of the point of Zimt, and that really is like an emphasis on supporting causes that really deserve to be highlighted and deserve to have more support. So this is just, it's one way of saying like, it's something really near and dear to my heart. I've never been in foster care. Okay, I've never been a foster parent, though, I would like to one day. I just, would have to improve a couple things in life, which is taking longer than anticipated. But like while I can't do that, it's kind of like everything. Like life is a little bit on hold because of growing this, right? Growing the brand. But I do want to prioritize giving to these really worthy individuals as much as possible, and those include kids in care. So I'll leave some information below pertaining to how I'd like to go about this initially, for kind of a specific fundraiser. But just know that this is something that it's not a one-time thing. It's something I'd like to and I will keep going with it forever. Like for as long as there is Zimt, as long as I can do something personally, even if it's not as much as I want to do, I still want to work towards helping these kids. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, I can't believe that there are like, babies and, toddlers and like kids and teenagers out there who just they aren't treated with the dignity and love that they deserve. So, like to do anything I can to fix that a little bit. Anyway, so I'll leave a link below to a blog post that provides a little bit more detail and context for this topic, as well as some links and resources and options for how you might want to become more involved in this. I think it's just giving that to somebody is just kind of one of the most wonderful things you can do in life, because it really it gives life, right? It can just completely change things for somebody, and for people down the line. So okay, that's it. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll talk at you soon. Bye.